Signs of the Southland, Wednesday, January 31st, 2024. Gentlemen, a monumental occurrence in the Georgia Tech calendar year. Once again, the foes from Chapel Hill in the shooty hoop sport have been vanquished. The number three in the nation in the shooty hoop sport, of course, 74-73 at McCamish Pavilion. Georgia Tech comes away with the victory. I am sorry if I don't sound super excited, but that's just how I sound. I am stoked about this. This is not a game that I imagined us winning. In our notes for our episode on Monday, I had thermonuclear Armageddon above these two games for this
Yes.
week.
Yes.
So I am personally very excited. We have Rahul Desphande from the Blueprint and the Technique here with us. Rahul, you are on site. You are on the court after the game. Let's start with you first. How you feeling? How you doing? How you doing for this one?
Sweet. Yeah. Thanks for the intro. Um, yeah, my voice is gone. Or was before I drank like 80 ounces of water today. But besides that, I mean, what an atmosphere. I mean, for the first sellout game since 2020, it meant a lot. And yeah, it was majority Carolina fans. The stands were blue more than I would like to have seen white. But still, the student section was there. Students were there. Students were loud. Fans were loud on their feet. The atmosphere was incredible. I had never seen McCamish like that before, um, except maybe even for volleyball, and not even then. Um, that was amazing. Um, I will say, getting to storm the court, that was something I didn't get to do earlier versus when we beat Duke, also ranked top 10 win at the time. Um, I had not gone to that game because I thought we were going to lose. And I said, if someone from Tobacco Road comes to town and they're ranked, I'm going to be there on the off chance that I get to storm the court. And so that's what I did. Um, it was incredible. We were in the student section, like right behind the band, me and a couple of my friends. And we saw towards the very end of the game, they started lining up security guards to try and stop people from climbing down onto the court. And I was I pointed it out to my friends, and then the final buzzer sounded, and we people started climbing down, and eventually, like the security guards didn't even do anything. They actually started gesturing us to climb down the stairs safely, which was cool of them, I think.
I wondered if they because I started videoing us at when the final possession started, like the last 3 seconds that when Davis put his shot up, and I waited for like 30 seconds and like one guy made it through. I wonder if they saw the security saw the Caitlin Clark video from a couple weeks ago and made because I went back and watched it today. They made sure most of the UNC team got off the court before most of the tech people, before the students came on. So I thought they were just a delay because they didn't want to have a repeat of the Duke situation where it did take like 35 seconds for people to figure out, wait, how do you get on this court? There's nowhere to get on the court because they made it so that you can't get on the court. Um, and then, so I hope they kind of had the decision of like, okay, they're obviously going to get on here somehow. Let's at least make sure the people that need to not get hurt don't get hurt. And I noticed there were some older folks like around right next to the drum set that they were like had like a ring of people around to make sure they didn't get hit on either. So that was good to see. So I think the Georgia Tech security did a very good job at making an effective and safe court storming considering the circumstances. It seems.
Yeah, it definitely felt better than what I think the Duke one looked like. Had a much bigger turnout at the center of the court too.
Yeah.
So I felt less embarrassed about storming the court when thousands of people are doing it too.
I also think it's like people are prepared for the possibility, right? You do it once, you sort of know how things go to a certain extent. This sounds very dumb to be talking about it this way for a court storming,
But still,
but
like
I
that
mean,
Duke one was the first one in McCamish. Like we had, like there was not one in McCamish, so they didn't know how to. I don't want to say police, but they didn't know how to protect this and keep it safe for everyone involved until the first one came around. So I'm kind of glad this the second one came as soon as it did, so that it's like okay, they had a quick learning about this.
yeah, it's always a fun time. I think because of the Caitlin Clark thing, I don't know how much longer the practice is going to be around. Eventually, security is going to get a little bit, be a little bit more of sticklers about it. But for now, it happened. It's the second one of the basketball season. It's the third one of the athletic year entirely. Two of them have been against UNC, the field storming at Bobby Dodd, and now this one at McCamish Pavilion. Jake, we haven't gone to you yet, but I want to get your take on this. How did you feel right at the end of that game, those last 5 or 6 minutes, as results were starting to shake out? You sort of saw this coming.
Yeah, I sit up in the nosebleeds. It's a pretty solid angle, but one thing it does allow, actually, it's pretty close to the press box if you've ever been to the press box. But one thing is it does allow for a pretty good view of the rest of the atmosphere as well. And my first thought when I sat down in my seat, wearing a white shirt and whatnot, because they called it whiteout, I was like, dang, UNC. There's a lot of their fans in white. Why did we make it a whiteout against UNC? And then I had the secondary realization that it's kind of brilliant because you get a bunch of UNC fans that accidentally wear white. So it looks even white outier than I know that's not a word, but neither is, white out. But, it looks even more cohesive or coherent than I think you might otherwise have if you went gold. And plus, I think more people just generally have a white t-shirt hanging around than gold or navy. We don't really need to rehash the great color out debates that we've had many times over the years. But yeah, that was the first thing I noticed when I got to my seat. I've been at many a McCamish sellout game. One thing that my seat does not allow is good audio of students and tech fans. I basically get a full ear of the UNC away section just based on, all the students yelling away from me. So I hope that translated well, because I got a bunch of a pro Tar Heel content. But I mean, the atmosphere was pretty buzzing for the most part.
Boo,
I think
boo,
leave me
punt,
be. Leave me
boo.
be. And again, I've been at many a sellout McCamish game. I think we sold out 5 in 2018, 2019. Akshay, it was the year we played like Virginia, Duke, UNC.
Was that the NIT year?
No, I think it was the year. It must have been the year after. I think we were already in because we were doing rec club recruitment at one of them. It was real busy. It was a Virginia game. It was a sellout on a weeknight. They were real good that year. But they sold out like 5 or 6 times that year. And maybe it's just because I never bought concessions when I was a student. I mean, they really just had soda, water, and I guess some Chick-fil-A along with like the Tech Classic type stuff. But it seemed like the lines were crazy. And of course, when you're a student, you come from dining halls or some other restaurant on campus. But for me coming in from work, I was like, geez, I don't know. I gotta hustle to go get some snacks before the game. And all that said, I think this is where we can segue into actual basketball because, to be honest, all the accoutrements are the accoutrements. And what happened on the court is why all of it happened. That first half, and specifically, maybe not right away, because Tech played pretty even at the start, despite missing a number of layup, dunk type, close range, high percentage shots. UNC pulled away pretty severely, pretty early. I don't think it's unfair to say that the number 3 team in the country was handling business pretty well through the first, what do you say, 12, 16 minutes of the game?
Yeah, it's like they had their 12-0 run at 12-0 at the 13:25 mark. They were up 20-11. They had come back from behind. They were up 20-11. And then he made it a 10-point lead a couple minutes later. So yeah, like about halfway through the first half, they had created the lead that you'd think, okay, they can just hold it at our arm's reach and they'll be okay, kind of game, or at least have one more scoring run and that'll put us down. And it didn't happen.
And then they went ice cold for just about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
They did not score a point for that last 5-minute stretch.
They scored 1 point. They scored 1 point. It was a free throw. I know, because we ended the half on a 12-1 run.
Right.
Yeah, I see
Yeah.
that now. But yeah, that 1 point in 5 minutes is not really how you play winning basketball, to say the least. I think one of the things that we've talked about is that kind of sequence for Tech, but in the next section of the game, right? That third quarter of the game where Tech just kind of falls apart offensively. They can't really get anything to drop. And it doesn't seem like they fell victim to this trope in this game. I mean, they were battling back and forth with UNC for the vast majority of this second half, right?
But to that end, basketball is a game of runs. If you're just gonna like look at some of these snapshots, you'll see an 18-4 UNC run right before, maybe not immediately right before that 12-1 run in Tech's favor, but from like 17-ish, 18-ish left in the first. I know that's like 3 minutes into the game, but Tech was up 9-5, and you blink and all of a sudden it's 23-13. And I think that's really what I was going for in terms of like, it's a game of runs, and to that end, Georgia Tech has seemingly given up usually a few more than their opponents, and not enough to like completely put them out of games, but it definitely felt like it was trending that way before clawing it back going into half. And also Tech was, dare I say, not terribly disciplined on defense in the first part of the first half. They were fouling pretty clean. I mean, pretty identifiable fouls. I don't think any of them were very ticky-tack or anything like that. It's just Tech not really playing clean defensive basketball. And, you get down in a 10-point hole and they kind of tighten it up. But really, we've seen that kind of rally from the mid double digits type behavior from this team a lot, especially in the Clemson game comes to mind as well.
Yeah, I think the one thing that we haven't seen this team do in these situations is close, right? They've rallied, they've brought it close, and I'm thinking very specifically of that Nevada game where Caleb Blackshear's brother scored 30 points.
Yes.
Nevada pulls away incredibly late, but Tech keeps that close the entire time and probably keeps it within 8 points the entire time. But they have had trouble closing. And here's another example of them actually sealing a deal, albeit leaving it extremely late, to be fair. That
Right.
last,
Yeah.
I think Nathan George puts in the winning shot with what, like
4 seconds or something like that.
maybe,
Yeah.
4 seconds left on the clock. So it's they leave it late. They always leave it late.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these games that we've been in this tough losing stretch, like these have been within single digits. Like they've had the chances to get to the end of the line here. And Kyle made a note of that in the press conference after. He's just like, we've been like 1 or 2 possessions away, and that just changed the game, and then we're just out of it. Like he was fully aware of the fact that there have just been too many games where they were right there, right where they need to be, just to make a very lethal strike, and just haven't yet, and haven't gotten over the line. I mean, Florida State lose by 8. No, that was 11. Sorry, Boston College lose by 7. Notre Dame lose by 7. Duke lose by 6 on the road in a really scrappy game. Clemson, of course, you win. Virginia arguably should have won that. End up losing by 9. Pitt lose by 8.
One, I think, too. Right?
Yeah.
That one was pretty close the whole way through.
Right. So, I mean, it's part of it's the sucky part of variance, and being really young is not knowing how to close. And so that's kind of just one of those things you got to learn how to win. I think is how a lot of coaches would put it, and we've at least figured it out a few times against the biggest teams in the country so far. So it's not like they don't know how to do it, but at least they do it when they do, I guess.
A lot of talk to that end, I think, especially being the top ranked team in the country and being a big brand, a lot of talk about a missed foul on the last possession for UNC. I don't know if any of y'all got a good look at that and would like to explain further from someone that missed it.
It's fine that it was not called, I would say. Also, a couple minutes before, Gapari was completely not, it had a completely perfect charge that was not called. So there was a recent call that went Duke's way. So in terms of just the 1-for-1, I was satisfied.
Jack, that was a Freudian slip.
Okay, cool. I don't care.
Duke
Said a
for
call that went
UNC.
Duke's way.
They're
A
both
call that went Duke's way
they're
is
both
so
blue
natural.
they're both
Is
blue
so
and evil to me.
natural.
They're just blue and evil. That's the same to me. So
Well, so I want to say that I've seen this take as a like, oh, Georgia Tech should have won. Da 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 da. From various places.
Georgia Tech should have won now. I
One,
mean,
you're the number 3 team in the nation. The fact that you were losing to Georgia Tech, a sub 500 team. Explain that. 2, I've seen every angle that I can possibly find on this play, and at most it was incidental contact, natural to the game of basketball. They bumped into each other. Dude kind of flies, not necessarily flopping per se, but it's just kind of a mad scramble. And if you're gonna call that, Nathan George, took incidental contact on the other end. Like there was very minimal reason to call that play, especially given that it was, all things considered, you're gonna have plays go one way or the other, whistle or not. I mean, it's kind of like what's the adage about football, Akshay? If you called holding on every play, you'd have reason to call holding on every play. Like, you're gonna
if you
have
called
bumps
holding
and
on every
dings
play,
and
we'd never play a snap.
right.
yeah,
We'd
exactly.
never play a game. It'd
Second.
be impossible.
First and
It's
40.
a physical sport.
They're physical contact sports, and unless you could say it happened at this time, and this time, and it's kind of like a hard shove or something that wasn't going the other way. Like, if the whistle's going pretty similar both ways, like, I don't know. I don't know.
Rahul, you were at the ground, closer to the ground level there. Did you notice anything about that play, or did it just seem like basketball when it was happening?
It looked like basketball to me. I don't know. The defender, his hands were down, and that's the one thing I noticed from my seat. Like, that shouldn't. It looked like a great no call to me. It didn't look like a foul from my angle. To be fair, I was partially obscured by the glass, so maybe I just didn't see it. Maybe there's a better angle out there somewhere. But looked fine to me. Looked like regular schmegular basketball.
Well, that's the right
schmegular
answer.
basketball.
Congrats.
I like that. I'm going to use that. Thank you.
Regular.
Did he make a basketball move? Did he make a basketball move?
Did he secure the ball and make a basketball? Was it a clear and obvious error?
No,
clear and obvious error.
I just think it's galling to put on there. And I say this every time I talk about refs. They're part of the game, right? Control the controllables. And Jack, I think you make a great point of like, hey, like Kabari took a clean, fully planted, charge. So, but then again, the charge rules have changed versus last year. Maybe those are still things that are ironing out. Yeah, that was definitely a very stressful 5 seconds. Is that a fair way to put it? There was a lot going on.
There was a lot. Yes,
indeed. Rahul, I want to come back to you. Let's talk a little bit about men of the match in soccer parlance, as we say. Who stood out for you in this game?
For me, it was very easily Nate George. I mean, for a guy that's supposed to be in his senior year of high school right now, he's hooping at a really high level. I mean, yes, there are freshman mistakes here and there, but I didn't really see too many of those last night. Just some great plays here. Just some really, really good plays overall. I would say he's probably my man of the match.
I want to expound on that just a little bit, because I think in a vacuum, you could take away and say, oh yeah, not too many, freshman mistakes from Nate George last night. But for those watching, Jack, Rahul, Akshay, I think it's pretty fair to say that while Nate played a pretty good game, UNC and Georgia Tech both had some pretty wild, not necessarily defensive blunders, but just like ball flying to guy not looking,
yes.
should have grabbed a ball as it goes out of bounds both ways. There's a couple times I was like, dude, UNC, why did you not grab that? I don't know. I just thought it was a pretty chaotic finish. And I was looking at highlights and I saw Kyle Sturdivant's banked 3. He's my man of the match. If not considering Nate George just for Nate George's he's got that dog in himness. But Kyle Sturdivant's banked in 3, which was a beaut, and they reviewed to make sure it was a 3, even though he was, pretty well done there. That came with still over 3 minutes to play in the game. And those were Tech's last points until Nate George scored with 7.7 to go.
Yeah.
Like that was a long 3 minutes and 20 seconds of
Yeah.
And it's not like UNC was going crazy either, because they
No,
only scored
well, they hit a
5
3
points in there.
They hit a
Yeah.
3 in there too with 2 minutes to go, and I was like, oh no! Like, I think I
Yeah.
remember tweeting from the account. I'm like, okay, because there was a timeout at the 155 mark. It's just like we're gonna need someone's got to score a clutch bucket if we're gonna win this. There's no way we're stopping UNC, even with their free throw struggles, which were mighty large throughout the game. They were gonna find a way to get 2 more points at somewhere in there within 2 minutes. You're just not stopping them, so we had to find something. And it's amazing we only had to find one of those and not 3 or 4 in that stretch of time, or at least get to the line or something.
Well, and I think that's extremely emblematic of the ball flying everywhere type.
Right.
It just felt like a very chaotic game, not necessarily like, oh, we dragged them down to our level or anything like that.
No,
But
yeah,
just
yeah.
and I'm going to give credit to before the game. One of the folks I sit with, he goes to every Georgia Tech basketball game. I think he's been at every home game for like the last 5 years except COVID, and has only missed like 2 other than that in the last 8, something crazy like that. Anyways,
Wow.
he goes, he goes, if we can hold Armando Bacot under 20, we'll definitely have a shot at winning this game. And I mean, that was kind of the playbook, right? They completely eliminated just about, they got, some
A big note
8,
here.
9, 10-point contributions. Go ahead, Jack, and then I'll
A
finish.
big note about this. Armando Bacot, guy that plays the paint. Let's not forget the fact that Biden Ndongo didn't play the last 36 minutes of this game.
Which hopefully he's okay, because that looked pretty bad.
He
Just putting that out there.
He was treated for a head injury. But yeah, we played without our best. We beat North Carolina effectively without our best player.
And to that end, Bacot, freshman of fall 2019. This is his 5th year in the league. He's one of the league's best players, and we just saw Tech kind of get demolished on the inside up at VT last Saturday. They were incredibly effective down low. I believe that was oh my gosh, I'm already forgetting his name. Poteet. Anyways, Tech did get handled inside on the glass against VT. Honestly, Kyle Filipowski of Duke, pretty effective in there too. But they managed to seal out a 5th-year All ACC player in the form of Armando Bacot. And I mean, RJ Davis, great player. Really had a night for himself. 28 points. Kind of inefficient from 3, but deadly efficient from just general field goal range. I think he was probably their man of the match, but really they managed to
He was their only man.
He was their whole team.
Yeah.
But yeah, they kept Bacot, Ingram, Seth Trimble. It was a quiet night for basically everyone but Davis.
That was the dichotomy of the game for me. It was RJ Davis against all of Georgia Tech. And the first thing Damon said when he started his opening statement was, this was like of the best team wins you've seen. Like it was a lot of made part of filling in for Bai was Ebenezer Dewani to play some minutes. Sasako had some really big minutes, hit his first 3, I think, since November in this game.
And those were his only points.
Right. Gapare had to do some important stuff. He had some freshman blunders in there, but they got around it. He did what he needed to do. Heck, even Carter Murphy played in this game. Who'd have think you'd need Carter Murphy for 4 minutes in order to beat North Carolina? But we did.
It is worth noting Miles Kelly did get in some early foul trouble in the first, limited his play in the second, and also he was just kind of generally quiet. That's where you saw Nate George and Kyle Sturdivant really step up. The 2-point guard lineup, I think, really works for us. At least last night, I think was a good evidence of that. They played off each other pretty well, I'd say.
Nate George played at 4 fouls for like the last 5 minutes of this game.
Yeah.
To which Damon said, I don't think he knew he had 4 fouls. Like he was just playing. So that I found that really funny. I'm trying to think if there's anything else in the press conference of note. Oh, um, Kyle is usually not a talkative dude. Even after the wins, like he's a pretty reserved dude. I had a couple classes with him. Like he was a reserved kind of guy, just quiet, as just his normal mo. He felt like the proud dad of this team afterwards. Like he was absolutely beaming when he had the chance to talk about George and Kapari and everybody else, because I think it was just a big relief for him to finally see. I mean, they broke through against Duke for sure, but I felt like it was a different level of breakthrough they got tonight, because it's 2 months later about since that Duke game, so they've come a long way just in terms of molding with each other and buying into what Damon's trying to sell them. So I think for him it was a really important win for him. He made the analogy that George was like Simba in The Lion King. They were holding it. They finally were raising him up to bring the new dawn of Georgia Tech basketball. He didn't even get asked about that. Before they said, "Okay, we're done here," he's like, "Wait, I gotta say this," and like added that on at the end of the press conference to make sure he got the analogy. It was so funny.
That's such an insane thing to say. Like, not the sent. I think the sentiment is totally fine, but
Right.
just the way that he's phrased this in comparing a player to Lion King is
Yeah.
such an insane thing to me to say. Just wrapping up here with a couple more stats. Tech is now 10-11 after that win. 11 losses on the slate, but 4 ranked wins, with 3 of them at home. This team is one of the most volatile basketball teams I have ever seen, I think, in my entire life. TV Teddy was reffing this one, and I don't think that any of us have ever seen Tech best TV Teddy at his best. So credit where credit's due there. A couple notes from Andy Demetra, the radio guy for Georgia Tech. Nathan George has had the clutch final minute buckets against Duke, Clemson, and UNC. So good. Maybe give him the ball at the end of games. Just a thought.
Yeah.
Tech was 7-1 coming into this game when they were holding opponents to shooting less than 30% from the 3-point line. This was Tech's first home win, against a top 3 team since 1994. In terms of ranked teams across all sports, Tech has beat this year number 17 UNC in football, number 3 Louisville in volleyball, number 8 Penn State in volleyball, number 12 Ohio State twice in volleyball, 20 Florida in volleyball, 7 Duke in men's basketball, 21 Mississippi State in men's basketball, and number 3 UNC in men's basketball. And I think there's one more.
Clemson, I forgot what they were ranked.
They were like 25.
They were somewhere
24?
at least above 20, I think, by the time that game happened. Yeah. Do you remember, Rahul? Or okay.
I've got a very different but related thing that I want to point on. I have no idea. I can't remember.
Dang it. All right. Well.
So, Jake's trivia corner. Not historical trivia, just nitty-gritty trivia. Do you guys know approximately how many teams there are in Division I basketball?
Like 300.
341.
340 something.
340, 350. I'll take anything in there. I want you to guess, and you guys know the concept of a quad 1 win, right? The ways that the NCAA segments wins and losses into determining if you're a good team or not. I want you to guess. Just take a guess. How many? First off, how many teams have a winning record in quad 1 games? Let's start there.
Oh, I'm gonna go like 10.
I'll go
higher,
12.
A little higher.
Higher.
A little higher.
I'll say 14.
It's 18. You guys are close.
Okay.
Only 18 teams have a winning record against quad 1 teams. Georgia Tech, despite being under 500, is 3-3 in such games. There are 4 teams that are currently 4-4. So based on how they play top opponents, that makes Georgia Tech transitively, or whatever you want to say, in effect, a top 23-ish program. I think that's pretty wild.
Okay, so we're gonna put that on a banner and
Yes.
hang it, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Top
Top
23 in quad one win percentage. Yeah, no, that's the home wins against Duke, North Carolina, the road win against Clemson, whereas the losses are at Virginia Tech. Yeah, that was a demolition, but quad one, not bad. And then you got Cincinnati and Duke there as well. It's really where those quad two games, which Tech has had a number of them where we're 2-5. That's really the difference, I think, in swinging the season.
It's interesting.
One last note from Twitter on this game from Brian Ives, who I believe covers UNC or is a UNC fan of some repute. North Carolina is 10-20 in its last 30 combined football and men's basketball games at Georgia Tech. The Tar Heels and Atlanta do not get along, end quote. So
it's crazy.
House of Horrors. House of Horrors.
I'm proud to say the band broke out the Fire Collins chant once again after they did the same in the women's basketball game about a month ago. That just, a good banter right there. Also, big note here. This was a national TV game. Reese Davis was on the call. We've harped on this a bunch of times, but part of the reason why our attention on Twitter was so much last night was not just because we beat North Carolina, but this was because this was just what was on ESPN. So we had the right spotlight and made extremely good use of being the national spotlight again. And it's something we all know it needs to happen to help Tech just move forward into whatever this next iteration of what it's going to be is. And so it's huge. It's huge to be successful at a stage like this.
Yeah, I mean, there were random, not even ACC friends of mine that were texting me like, "Oh my gosh!"
Right.
Well, I guess if you count Cal Berkeley as ACC, I guess that is ACC. But like Big Ten grads and like my family and stuff, like it.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, hi, Dad. Glad you're doing well. Happy Tuesday." That kind of thing. But
here's all I know is that the year that Rahul brought back the blueprint, we're just storming fields and courts everywhere on campus. So I mean, that might be a reason. I'm not saying it is, but
we're getting a lot of good pictures for it, if nothing else.
Yeah.
That is true. There's some phenomenal shots in the book. I'm so excited.
I got 2 degrees and was on campus for 5 years, and they never published a blueprint. So you're doing quite a service bringing it back. It's really great to see.
I think you must have hit like the exact window of the hiatus, 2018 to 2023. So you might call yourself lucky just for that. So
lucky in a manner of speaking.
In a manner of speaking, yeah.
In a minute, for sure. Just to wrap up, Tech men's basketball's next game will be February 3rd at 5:30 at NC State. That is what? Is that Sunday?
Saturday. That is a Saturday CW game too.
Oh boy.
So
are we underdogs?
The exact opposite of the situation we had.
Who's favored in this one?
I don't even want to look. I like the CW's score bug and their camera angles are like incredibly off-putting to me as just like a baseline concept. So
all I'm saying is the CW curse has not failed road teams.
Yeah.
So
it did fail road Duke in our building in basketball, but we were a big underdog, so I guess that counts as it coming through.
Is the curse against road teams or is it favored teams?
I think it's favored teams.
If it's favored teams, I'll be watching.
I do not know. I wasn't able to find this quick enough, but yeah. So
okay. I think that is about all that we have on the men's basketball dramatic victory over number 3 UNC. We'll be back with some trivia and some other news and updates after this short break.
Yeah, as always, a great way to celebrate Georgia Tech basketball is to buy great Section 103 basketball merch. Miles Kelly, of course, his NIL shirt is available, number 13. Great way to support, great player for Georgia Tech, but also Buzz spinning basketballs. What's not to love there, as well as welcome to the Thriller Dome, a shirt that I own and I wear all the time, so much that I wanted to wear it for this podcast, but I had to pick a different Section 103 shirt instead because I wore it the other day. Anywho, they make great stuff, as always, free shipping on orders over $70. Everything is 23% off today. Hopefully it still is by the time this goes out, but in the event it's not, tune in whenever tech has nice little upsets, because they generally tend to align with nice sales at Section 103.
Welcome back. Just a couple of news and notes before we hit the trivia button. The spring game for Georgia Tech football has been announced. That date is April 13th. Kickoff is set for 1 p.m. I believe that is Masters Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Purdy.
It is not only Masters Saturday, it's softball Saturday, tennis Saturday, and baseball Saturday, also at Tech on that day. So we mentioned there's always going to be some pack Saturdays. That's one of them. And usually parking's free for the spring game, too. So I'd be curious how they're going to solve that problem. If there's be a lot of people on campus. Hopefully that means be a lot of overflow to baseball. Hopefully there's be some inflow to tennis and softball maybe too. I don't know. But there's be a busy day on campus that day.
Yeah, for sure. The last note, or I guess I have two more. Women's tennis won versus Georgia State 7-0. So that's nice to see. I believe the men are facing off against State on Friday, so keep an eye out for that. The last little bit of ACC related news, which I wanted to mention very briefly, is that Boston College head coach Jeff Hafley has departed for the Green Bay Packers defensive coordinator job.
Oh,
It's
I didn't know.
It's January 31st, and the college football coaching carousel is still chugging. It is remarkable how much has changed in the sport.
Rahul, you might
just
get a
like
job at a Power 5,
years.
a Power 4 program with how much turnover there is. I mean, I just keep your ears peeled.
My
Keep
ears
your
are peeled.
options open.
I think I could do a pretty good job. Maybe.
There you go. That's the spirit.
If I have y'all in my
succeed
ear.
in lots of different places.
I'm sure Syracuse or there's going to be some schools out there that are just going to need a coach again in the next year and a half, probably. That's just
all I'm saying is that there's no better job than a fired head coach.
They make so much money. They make so much money to do absolutely nothing, and then they consider they just can't stop. Like they just go and coach again, which sacrifices the money that they're taking for free. It's hilarious. It's always funny. What we can do as well, in that vein, is keep laughing at UNC with some North Carolina themed trivia. Mr. Grant, what do you have for me?
Yes, as many likely know, Georgia Tech and North Carolina have not always shared a conference, but they've often crossed paths. They played, of course, in every sport, given that they do share a conference together. But honestly, it hasn't always been successful. Gents, there are two teams that own a winning record all time against North Carolina among Georgia Tech sports. Do you know what those two teams are?
Winning record all time across all Georgia Tech sports.
Wow. Okay.
Volleyball? Damn. I tried.
Oh dear.
Football.
Yes, that is one of them.
Yeah.
Always, whenever I think it's not football, it always is. This happens every single time we do this.
You know, we have like the top 25 most wins all time as a football program, and
this
UNC
is
is UNC football. Like,
Yes, but also have you
ye of little faith? Like,
you
come on.
little faith is like my middle name, my guy.
There's one more. It's probably the other quote unquote obvious one. Should you know much about UNC's other sports? Let's just say that.
baseball.
Field hockey, of course.
Oh, field
Jack
hockey.
got
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Oh, baseball. I did. Okay.
No,
Nice.
yeah, Georgia Tech does not have a winning record against field hockey. We don't have a field hockey team.
That's
No,
the
Georgia
joke.
Tech. Georgia Tech football is 588 all time against UNC. That's 32, 22, and 3. Baseball is 83 and 72 all time against UNC. Rounding out the rest of the sports, you've got volleyball at a 478, softball at a 470 flat, and then for very torturous records, that would be men's basketball, the the fifth highest on this list at a 273. This is before last night's results, so it'll be a little bit better. Keep in mind the next 3 of these are about to be worse. Men's tennis is 14 and 38 all time for a nice 269. Women's basketball is 256. That's 21 and 61. While women's tennis, and keep in mind, this is the only sport in which Georgia Tech has an NCAA recognized and awarded national championship. All time is 12 and 41 against UNC women's tennis, who are quite good. That is a 226 all time record. Interestingly, if you aggregate all these sports together, Georgia Tech is 404 all time against UNC in all sports,
Nice.
which is so
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Defend the 404 next year,
God.
great. But yeah, all-time Georgia Tech is a 327 at away sites, a 395 at neutral sites, and 480 at home. So very tough. UNC's got a great athletic department. Are there any other stats you want to know? I have them all right here, but those are just the ones that I thought were kind of amusing.
The 404 thing is gonna really bug me now. It's gonna bug
I
me
thought that was
so
funny.
much.
The amount of times that number has come up makes me really, really convinced that if we'd done better the last couple of years, we could have been like capitalizing on this in like everything.
Yeah. You might think. One other
I'm
fun fact
tortured
that
by
I did
the
notice.
idea. I'm tortured by the idea that the man that I associate with 404 now is the defensive coordinator at UNC. Well, tortured and also like looking forward to Schadenfreude, but I digress.
He's a nice smooth 500 all time against UNC. Remember Mercedes-Benz, the prove it game. That was great. All time.
Proof
I
of
did
concept
notice,
game, Jake.
yes, I did notice that Chan Gailey went 5-1, which I thought was worth noting for all my Chan stands out there. Chan Gailey did go 5 out of 6 against the gang up that way. Paul was 7-4 for notes. I'm trying to see if any of the other ones jump out at me. Nothing too crazy. Shelton Collier, of course, 625. You'd expect that. William Alexander went 6-3-2 for a nice 636. But yeah, that's really about all I got. Unless you guys want to know something specific. Yeah. It's always a good time to dive into these results because there's always something weird at the bottom.
Always something weird is kind of our specialty, to be fair. So
That's how we do. That's how we do.
that is you might as well put it on a placard, put it as a subtitle on every episode. But gentlemen, I think that about wraps it up for us. Thank you, Rahul, for joining us tonight. Where can the people find you and your work?
Sweet. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter usually. My username is rsdesh47.
When the blueprint comes out.
Blueprint's going to be out in late April. You can come find me on campus at commencement to pick up your copy.
Critical question.
You can also place an order.
Yeah, I was about to say, can alumni buy this when it's done?
Alumni can purchase it, but you'll have to find your way onto campus to pick up your copy.
If you've got any 2017 ones lying around, it sounds like that's the only one that I might feature. But anywho, congrats on all your work there. It is great to see that kind of.
Thanks for having me.
All right,
absolutely, Mr. Grant.
Yeah, happy to take us away. Again, thanks for joining us. As always, we do know that this podcast is distributed many places, but the best place for everyone to hear about it is through word of mouth. So tell your friends, give us a review, write us at fromtherumbleseat@gmail.com. Summer is not too far away, but we do take suggestions all time of year, even if we can't make them a full episode. So yes, email us from therumble@gmail.com. You can find us on the web from therumble.com. Like, comment, subscribe, interact. We put up a bunch of content in the written word there, as well as these fine podcasts. You can find us on Twitter at FTRSblog. I'm at Jake Grant 98. Jack's at Jack Nicholas, and Section 103 is at Section 103. You can also find them at section103.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. That's the full blog name at From the Rumble Seat. Oh, I almost forgot. Use code FTRS at Section 103. And in the meantime, good night, good luck, and go Giants.